The massive viewing screen in the Galactic Council chamber showed a small fleet of ships moving through space. These vessels were unlike anything the council members had seen before. They were tiny, almost comically so compared to the mighty warships of other species. Admiral Braun of the Council Defense Force couldn't help but laugh. His deep blue scales shimmered under the chamber's bright lights as he pointed at the screen. "Are we sure these are actually spaceships? They look more like escape pods to me." His comment drew chuckles from the other council members. The chamber, filled with representatives from 50 different spacefaring species, buzzed with amused whispers and barely hidden smirks. Only the council speaker, an old and wise member of the rock-like granite species, maintained his composure. "These are the humans' most advanced vessels," he announced, his voice echoing through the chamber. "They have requested permission to use our trade routes." On the smaller screen to the right, a human face appeared. Admiral Reed of the Human Defense Fleet stood straight and proud, despite the mocking looks he was receiving. His gray uniform was crisp and neat, his expression professional. "Honorable Council," Reed began, his voice steady. "We come seeking peaceful trade and cooperation. Earth has much to offer the galactic community." Admiral Braun interrupted, not even trying to hide his amusement. "And what exactly can you offer us with such miniature ships? The cargo hold of my personal shuttle is larger than your largest vessel." Reed's expression didn't change. "Size isn't everything, Admiral. Our ships are perfectly capable of." "Capable?" Braun cut him off again. "Your largest ship would fit in our maintenance bay. How do you even move cargo?" "One box at a time." More laughter filled the chamber. Some council members were actually pointing at the screen now, making jokes about the tiny fleet to each other. The council speaker raised his hand for silence, but even he couldn't completely hide his doubts. "Admiral Reed, while we appreciate your enthusiasm, there are certain standards that must be met. Your ships appear to be far below our minimum size requirements for safe space travel." Reed tried again. "Our technology takes a different approach. We've developed advanced." "Different approach?" A reptilian council member hissed. "You mean primitive approach. Look at those engines. They're barely visible." The human admiral's patience was starting to wear thin, but he maintained his professional demeanor. "If you would allow us to demonstrate." "There's nothing to demonstrate," Braun declared, standing up from his seat. "These ships are clearly unsuitable for galactic travel. They probably can't even handle the basic rigors of deep space." The council speaker nodded slowly. "I must agree with Admiral Braun. These vessels appear too small and primitive for safe operation on our trade routes. We cannot risk accidents or breakdowns disrupting established traffic patterns." Reed's jaw tightened slightly. "I assure you, our ships are more than capable." "The council has made its decision," the speaker announced firmly. "Until humans can produce vessels of appropriate size and apparent technological advancement, you will be restricted to your local space. This is for your own safety, of course." The human admiral stood silent for a moment, then gave a short nod. "We understand. Thank you for your consideration." The screen went dark. As the council chamber emptied, members were still chuckling about the tiny fleet. Admiral Braun was particularly pleased with himself, telling anyone who would listen about how he'd saved the trade routes from being clogged with human escape pods. Only the council speaker felt a slight unease. Something in Admiral Reed's calm demeanor, his lack of protest at their mockery, didn't sit right. But he pushed the thought aside. After all, how dangerous could such a small fleet possibly be? In his office aboard the Human Defense Fleet flagship, Admiral Reed sat quietly, looking at the stars through his viewport. A small smile crossed his face as he pressed a button on his desk. "Send word to command," he said softly. The council reacted exactly as expected. "Initiate Phase 2. The tiny ships continued their patrol, their true capability still hidden from the laughing council's eyes. For now, 3 months after the council's rejection, Captain Tom Walker stood on the bridge of his ship, the HMS Swift, watching another merchant vessel limp into the human repair dock. This was the 5th attack this week. Status report. He called out to his crew, his voice tight with controlled anger. Sir, the trading ship Lost Hope reports minimal crew injuries, but their cargo is gone, replied his first officer. Pirates again. Same story as the others. They thought our ships would be easy targets. Walker walked to the main display, studying the patterns of recent attacks. The pirates were getting bolder, striking closer and closer to Earth's main shipping lanes. They clearly believed human ships were defenseless simply because they were small. In her office at Fleet Intelligence, Officer Kate Miller was connecting the dots. Scattered across her desk were reports from dozens of merchant captains, all telling the same story. The pirates weren't just random raiders. They were organized, and they were specifically targeting human vessels. She pulled up a star chart, marking each attack location with a red dot. Computer, display all attack sites from the past month. The pattern was clear as day. The pirates were systematically testing human defenses, probing for weaknesses. Miller immediately called Admiral Reed's office. Sir, I've found something you need to see. 20 minutes later, Reed stood in Miller's office, looking at her findings. They're not just attacking us for cargo, he said quietly. They're gathering intelligence. Yes, sir, Miller agreed. And look at this. She pulled up another chart. The pirate ships match Council military specifications almost exactly. Just older models. Reed's eyes narrowed. Someone's testing us, using pirates to do their dirty work. Meanwhile, in a hidden shipyard deep within asteroid belt, human engineers were hard at work. The sound of welding and machinery filled the massive space as they modified their vessels, adding new systems that would remain invisible to standard scans. How's the new heat sink coming along? The lead engineer asked, checking his tablet. Ready for testing, his assistant replied. The aliens won't be able to detect our energy output with this installed. They'll still think we're running on basic fusion. Back on the HMS Swift, Captain Walker received new orders from Fleet Command. His ship would be the first to receive the upgrades. As he watched the maintenance crews work, he couldn't help but smile. The pirates thought they were gathering intelligence on human capabilities, but they were only seeing what humans wanted them to see. In his quarters that evening, Walker recorded in his log, Day 89 since Council rejection. Third patrol this week. Lost another merchant ship's cargo to pirates. Crews getting angry, but maintaining discipline. New orders received. We're to continue playing weak and helpless. It's hard watching our people get hit, but Admiral Reed's plan is working. The enemy's overconfidence grows daily. At that same moment, Admiral Braun was reading reports of the pirate attacks with satisfaction. See how their tiny ships flee at the first sign of trouble, he told his aide. This proves we were right to deny them access to our trade routes. They can't even defend themselves. His aide nodded dutifully, but couldn't help asking, Sir, don't you think it's strange? The humans haven't even requested our help against the pirates. Braun waved the concern away. They're probably too embarrassed to admit their weakness. Let them learn the hard way. You need proper-sized ships to survive in space. Back on Earth, in the Fleet Command Center, Admiral Reed reviewed Officer Miller's latest intelligence report. The pirates had fallen for their act completely. Now it was time for Phase 3. He pressed a button on his comm unit. This is Admiral Reed. Begin Operation Mousetrap. Let's show these pirates why it's unwise to corner a small creature. Sometimes it has very sharp teeth. In space, the tiny human ships continued their patrols, looking weak and vulnerable to outside eyes. Inside them, crews checked their weapons and waited patiently. The trap was almost ready to spring. Deep within the secure briefing room of Earth's Fleet Command, Admiral Reed stood before a group of ship captains. The room was quiet except for the soft hum of the holographic display showing the internal layout of a human warship. Ladies and gentlemen, Reed began. It's time you knew the full capabilities of your vessels. He pressed a button, and the hologram zoomed in on the engine section. While the council laughs at our tiny ships, they don't understand one simple truth. Humans have always been good at making things smaller and better. The display shifted to show a comparison between a standard alien engine and the human compact fusion drive. The alien engine was enormous, filled with redundant systems and wasteful space. The human engine was small, elegant, and far more efficient. "Look here," Reed pointed to the alien design. "They think bigger means better. Their ships are giant because their technology is primitive. They need huge engines because they waste energy. They need massive crews because their systems are inefficient." Captain Walker raised his hand. "Sir, why don't we just show them our real capabilities? Prove them wrong." Reed smiled. "Because, Captain, sometimes the best advantage is having your enemy underestimate you." He switched the display to show a weapons system. "Our point defense lasers are 1/10 the size of alien versions, but twice as powerful. They think we don't have weapons because they can't see the massive turrets they're used to." In the research labs below the command center, engineers were putting the finishing touches on their latest innovations. A young scientist named Mark held up a circuit board the size of his palm. "This little thing," he explained to his team, "replaces an alien computer that's bigger than this room." They'd never figured out how to properly miniaturize their quantum processors. His colleague Jane nodded, working on what looked like a small metal cube. "Same with our heat management systems. The aliens use massive radiator panels. We developed metamaterials that channel heat through subspace. No panels needed." Back in the briefing room, Reed continued his presentation. "Our ships aren't just small, they're compact. Every cubic inch has a purpose. While they're building ships the size of cities, we're building ships that are nothing but muscle and brain." The hologram showed a human ship slipping through a tight asteroid field, performing maneuvers that would be impossible for the larger alien vessels. Their ships are like giant cruise liners. Ours are like speedboats, and in combat, I know which one I'd rather have. One of the newer captains spoke up. "But sir, what about cargo space? The council wasn't wrong about our cargo holds being small." Reed's smile grew wider. "Show them, Lieutenant," he ordered. A young officer pressed some buttons, and the hologram revealed the true nature of human cargo systems. What looked like a small cargo hold was actually the entrance to a subspace pocket, capable of holding 10 times more than its apparent volume. "We cracked practical subspace storage 20 years ago," Reed explained. "The aliens are still trying to figure out if it's possible. They scan our ships, see small cargo holds, and assume we can't carry much. They never detect the subspace pockets because they don't know what to look for." In orbit above Earth, the human fleet continued its patrols. To alien eyes, they looked like toys compared to the massive ships of other species. But inside these toys were technologies that would revolutionize space travel once they were finally revealed. "Remember," Reed concluded, "every time they laugh at our tiny ships, they're showing us their greatest weakness, their pride. They're so convinced that bigger is better, they've stopped trying to improve." He switched off the hologram and looked at his captain seriously. "Soon, the pirates will launch their big attack. They'll come at us with ships 10 times our size, weapons that look massive and scary, and crews that outnumber us greatly." He paused for effect. "And that's exactly what we want. Because sometimes, the deadliest predator isn't the biggest one. It's the one nobody sees coming." The captains nodded, finally understanding the full scope of humanity's plan. Their small ships weren't a weakness. They were the future of space warfare, hidden in plain sight. The pirate fleet emerged from hyperspace like a swarm of angry wasps. 20 massive ships, each one dwarfing the small human convoy they had come to attack. Their leader, Captain Black, smiled as he looked at his prey through the main viewport. "Look at those tiny human ships," he said to his bridge crew. 5 little cargo vessels and 2 patrol ships. This will be the easiest raid of our careers." Below deck on the HMS Swift, Captain Walker watched the pirate fleet appear on his sensors. He kept his face neutral as he pressed the comm button. All ships, maintain course. Remember your training. The pirates spread out in a standard attack formation. Their huge ships moved to surround the human convoy, cutting off any escape routes. They had done this dozens of times before. It was almost boring now. Captain Black opened a communication channel. Attention human vessels. Power down your engines and prepare to be boarded. Resist, and we will destroy you. Walker responded with a shaky voice, playing his part perfectly. Please, we're just merchants. We don't want any trouble. Then surrender, Black demanded. You have 30 seconds. Walker looked at his crew and gave a slight nod. Everyone knew what that meant. After months of playing weak, after countless attacks and mockery, it was finally time to show their true strength. Now, Walker ordered, his voice suddenly firm and confident. The helpless human ships sprang into action. Their previously dim engines flared to full power, but instead of running away, they charged straight at the pirate vessels. The pirates barely had time to register their surprise before the humans were among them. What are they doing? Black shouted. Blast them out of space. But hitting the human ships proved impossible. They moved like fighter jets, spinning and weaving between the pirate vessels. The pirates' huge weapons were useless. They were designed to hit big targets, not these lightning-fast small ships. Sir, one of Black's officers yelled. Their weapons, they're not normal. Our shields are failing. The human ships' point defense lasers, previously hidden, cut through the pirate shields like they weren't even there. Precise shots disabled engines, weapons, and communication arrays. The pirates never even got a chance to launch their fighters. Walker's voice came over the comm again, but this time there was no fear in it. Attention pirate vessels. Power down your engines and prepare to be boarded. Resist, and we will destroy you. Black stared in horror as two of his ships exploded, not from massive weapon impacts, but from tiny, precise strikes that somehow ignored their shields completely. 3 more ships reported total system failures. How? He demanded. Those ships are too small to carry weapons that powerful. His answer came as the HMS Swift shot past his bridge viewport. He got a clear look at it for the first time, and what he saw made his blood run cold. The ship's hull was covered in what looked like tiny crystals, quantum point defense arrays that no one had ever been able to make that small before. Sir, they're everywhere. His tactical officer screamed. We can't track them. They're too fast, too small. Our targeting computers can't lock on. In less than 10 minutes, it was over. The mighty pirate fleet floated dead in space, disabled by ships a fraction of their size. Not a single human vessel had been destroyed, or even seriously damaged. Walker opened a channel to all ships. This is Captain Walker to pirate vessels. Your ships are disabled. Your weapons are offline. We will now begin boarding operations. I suggest you don't resist. We've only shown you a fraction of what we can do. As his security teams prepared to board the pirate ships, Walker sent a short message to Admiral Reed. Operation Mousetrap successful. The cheese has been eaten. In his office, Reed read the message and smiled. Now it was time for word of this battle to spread. Let the Council hear what their tiny human ships could really do. Admiral Braun's office was in chaos. Reports flooded in from all sectors about the complete destruction of one of the largest pirate fleets in known space. His blue scales had turned pale as he read the details. This can't be right, he muttered, looking at the battle footage for the 20th time. 20 pirate warships, all disabled or destroyed by 7 human vessels. Impossible. His aide rushed in with more reports. Sir, you need to see this. We've confirmed the footage is real. The human ships, they moved in ways our sensors couldn't track. In the council chamber, emergency meetings were being called. The massive viewing screen showed the battle from multiple angles. Council members who had once laughed at the tiny fleet now watched in stunned silence. The council speaker stood at his podium, his rocky features grave. It seems we may have miscalculated. These humans are not what we thought they were. Admiral Braun had no choice but to investigate personally. His flagship arrived at the battle site 3 days later. The scene that greeted him made his heart stop. The mighty pirate ships floated lifeless in space, covered in precise burn marks no bigger than his hand. No massive weapon impacts, no signs of brutal force, just small surgical strikes that had somehow pierced the strongest shields known to the galaxy. "Sir," his science officer reported, "we've analyzed their attack pattern. Those small human ships, they didn't just get lucky. This was a carefully planned operation. They used their size as an advantage." Braun watched as his team studied the disabled pirate vessels. How did they do it? Where did they hide such powerful weapons? The answer came from an unlikely source: historical records. As Council researchers dug into humanity's past, they found something disturbing. Thousands of years of warfare had taught humans one crucial lesson: bigger isn't always better. In his private chambers, the Council speaker read through Earth's military history, the story of David and Goliath, the guerrilla warfare tactics, the constant drive to make weapons smaller, faster, more efficient. Humans had never tried to match their enemies in size. They simply found ways to make size irrelevant. "Look at this," a Council scientist explained to Admiral Braun. "Their ships aren't primitive. They're revolutionary. They miniaturize technology we thought couldn't be made smaller. Their weapons aren't weak. They're so advanced we didn't recognize them." Fear began to spread through the Council. If humans could make ships this powerful at this size, what else could they do? How many other human technologies had they dismissed as primitive simply because they were small? Admiral Reed received an urgent message from the Council requesting a meeting. As he prepared to attend, he allowed himself a small smile. The same Council members who had mocked his tiny ships now wanted to know all about human technology. In the Council chamber, the atmosphere was very different from the first meeting. No one was laughing now. The Council speaker addressed Reed with newfound respect. "Admiral," he said, "we owe humanity an apology. We made assumptions based on size that were incorrect." Braun stepped forward, his earlier arrogance replaced with genuine curiosity. "Those weapons, our best shields couldn't stop them. How did you manage to make them so small?" Reed's response was diplomatic, but carried a hint of pride. "Admiral Braun, humanity learned long ago that the most dangerous things often come in small packages. We didn't make small ships because we had to. We made them small because it's better." The Council members looked at each other nervously. They had mocked the human fleet, rejected their request for trade routes, and pushed them aside. Now they realized they had been wrong. These tiny ships weren't a joke. They were the future of space warfare, and humanity had mastered it first. Not everyone in the galaxy was happy about humanity's rising influence. The Crimson Alliance, a powerful group of worlds on the Outer Rim, saw humans as a threat that needed to be eliminated. They hadn't believed the reports about the pirate fleet's defeat. Surely such tiny ships couldn't be that dangerous. "We will crush these humans and their miniature toys," declared War Leader Rex, addressing his fleet of 50 massive warships. Each one was bigger than 3 Earth aircraft carriers combined. The pirates were weak. We are not. Earth's early warning systems detected the incoming fleet long before they arrived. Admiral Reed stood in Fleet Command, watching the tactical display with calm eyes. "They still think size matters," he said to Captain Walker, who stood beside him. "Let's show them how wrong they are. Execute Defense Plan Delta." When the Crimson Fleet arrived at the edge of the solar system, they found it seemingly empty. Their massive ships moved forward confidently, their sensors scanning for Earth's defenders. "Where are the famous tiny ships?" War Leader Rex mocked over an open channel. "Hiding in fear." His answer came in the form of 30 small dots appearing on his tactical display, emerging from hiding spots in the asteroid belt. The human ships looked like insects compared to his mighty warships. "This is their defense fleet." Rex laughed. This will be even easier than we thought. All ships, open fire. The space between the fleets lit up with energy weapons and missile trails. The Crimson ships fired their massive weapons, expecting to obliterate the human vessels instantly. But the tiny ships moved like quicksilver, dodging everything thrown at them. Then the humans showed their true power. The small ships split into groups of 3, using what they called wolf pack tactics. They darted between the massive Crimson warships, their advanced engines letting them pull maneuvers that should have been impossible. "Sir," Rex's tactical officer shouted in panic, "we can't hit them. They're too fast, too small. Our targeting systems weren't designed for ships that size." Before Rex could respond, the first wave of human attacks struck. Precision laser fire from the tiny ships cut through his fleet's shields like they weren't even there. The humans weren't aiming for destruction. They were surgically disabling weapons, engines, and control systems. "Impossible." Rex screamed as his flagship's main weapons went dark. "They're not even using heavy weapons. How are they doing this?" Admiral Braun, watching the battle from a safe distance, finally understood. The humans hadn't built small ships because they couldn't build big ones. They had built small ships because it made them nearly impossible to hit while making their own attacks devastatingly precise. "Launch fighters," Rex ordered desperately. Thousands of small craft poured from his remaining ships. The humans responded by revealing their secret weapon. What looked like ordinary cargo containers on their ships suddenly opened, releasing swarms of automated drones. Each one was no bigger than a human fighter pilot, but they moved with computer-perfect precision. "This is Admiral Reed to Crimson Fleet." Reed's calm voice came over all channels. "You have 2 choices. Surrender now, or we will be forced to demonstrate our ship's full combat capabilities." Rex's response was to fire everything he had left. It was a mistake. The human ships activated their full weapon systems: quantum point defense arrays, miniaturized beam weapons, and subspace disruptors. Technology that other species had said was impossible to make that small turned the mighty Crimson Fleet into floating wreckage in less than 10 minutes. Captain Walker's voice crackled over the comm. "All enemy ships disabled. Admiral, 0 casualties on our side." Admiral Braun watched the last Crimson ship go dark, its massive bulk now useless in space. "Size," he muttered to himself, "means nothing if you can't hit your target." The tiny human fleet regrouped, their small size belying the incredible power they contained. They had just defeated a fleet 10 times their size without losing a single ship. No one in the galaxy would ever mock them again. 1 month after the defeat of the Crimson Fleet, the Galactic Council chamber was packed. Every species had sent representatives to this historic session. The same room that had once echoed with laughter at humanity's tiny ships now hummed with excited whispers about their incredible technology. The council speaker stood at his podium, his rocky features solemn. "We are here today to formally apologize to the human race for our previous misjudgment." He turned to Admiral Reed, who stood tall and proud. "We allowed our preconceptions about size to blind us to true innovation." Admiral Braun stepped forward, his blue scales gleaming. "I personally wish to apologize for my mockery of your vessels. Your ships aren't just warships. They're works of art. We've been building bigger ships for centuries, while you were building better ones." Reed nodded graciously. "Apology accepted. Humanity has always believed that innovation matters more than size. We hope we can now share our technology for the benefit of all." The council chamber erupted in applause. Species that had once looked down on humans now looked to them for guidance. Trading ships from across the galaxy lined up to receive human upgrades to their systems. In the shipyards above Earth, alien engineers watched in amazement as human workers installed miniaturized quantum drives into vessels of all sizes. The same technology that made human ships so powerful could make any ship better. "I don't understand," one alien engineer said to his human colleague. "Why didn't you tell us about these advances when you first contacted us?" The human engineer smiled. "Would you have believed us? Sometimes you have to show, not tell. Back in the council chamber, new trade agreements were being signed. Humanity's trade routes weren't just approved, they were given priority status. Everyone wanted to do business with the species that had revolutionized space travel. Captain Walker, standing with his crew aboard the HMS Swift, received their new orders. They would lead a joint training mission, teaching other species about human combat tactics and technology. Imagine that, his first officer said with a grin. They used to laugh at our tiny ships. Now they're lining up to learn from us. The Council's military committee was completely reorganized. Admiral Reed was asked to head a new division focused on technological innovation. His first recommendation: stop measuring the ship's worth by its size. In shipyards across the galaxy, vessels were being redesigned. Aliens had finally learned that bigger wasn't always better. Compact fusion drives, miniaturized weapons, and efficient designs became the new standard. A year after their first contact, humanity had transformed galactic society. The phrase, "size doesn't matter," became a common saying in spaceports everywhere. Young alien officers dreamed of commanding ships as advanced as the human fleet. Admiral Reed stood at his office window, watching Earth's fleet patrol alongside ships from a dozen alien species. The new Joint Defense Force was stronger than ever, combining the best technologies from all worlds. "You know what the funny thing is," he said to Captain Walker, who had come to deliver a report. "We never wanted to prove we were better. We just wanted to show that different isn't wrong." Walker nodded. "The aliens understand that now. Yesterday I heard a council member say that humanity's greatest contribution wasn't our technology. It was teaching the galaxy to think differently." In deep space, human ships still patrolled the trade routes. They were still small compared to most alien vessels, but no one mocked them anymore. Now when other ships saw the tiny fleet approaching, they didn't laugh, they moved respectfully aside. The council speaker, in his final address before retirement, summed it up perfectly. "Humanity taught us the greatest lesson in galactic history. True strength doesn't come from being the biggest or the most powerful. It comes from being the smartest, the most innovative, and the most willing to challenge conventional wisdom." Their tiny ships didn't just change space travel. They changed how we think about everything.